Do you know why your reactions feel shaped by something you cannot see? What happens when guilt appears before thought and your mind agrees without proof? If you want your clarity back, listen carefully and count your quiet alarms. You are about to see how silent pressure steals your choices, step by step. The theft does not start with force. It starts with confusion and soft misdirection. When confusion rises inside you, agreement follows, and the trap quietly closes. The hidden system begins with emotional fog. Then it installs quick guilt as autopilot. You feel responsible for moods you did not create, yet you accept the burden. That acceptance becomes the leash, and the leash hides inside your own thoughts. The first invisible game is guilt priming through future framing. It is subtle and sticky. The manipulator plants a small prediction, then ties your worth to preventing disappointment. You begin monitoring their comfort more than your judgment. Your inner guard goes silent. Notice the sequence. It always starts with a preloaded expectation wearing care. The message sounds like guidance, yet it links your identity with their emotional stability. Once that link forms, the brain fears separation, and guilt fires faster than logic. Your counter move is not explanation. Your counter move is stimulus mapping and slow verification. Map the moment you felt a sudden guilt spike, then list the exact trigger. Ask a calm question inside your head. What fact changed besides their expression? When nothing changed except tone or timing, you caught the prime, breathe, and delay. Delays starve primed guilt because primed guilt needs speed, not clarity, to survive. Give words a full minute to cool, and notice your autonomy returning slowly. The second invisible game is responsibility inversion through selective memory cues. This game edits the past in real time, then offers a convenient moral shortcut. You are nudged to remember only the details that support your duty to fix. The technique uses narrowing questions and confident pacing. Both compress your recall bandwidth. Compressed recall cannot hold complexity, so ambiguity collapses into your assumed fault. You accept the narrow picture because your brain prefers closure over cognitive effort. Build your immunity with a simple mental anchor. Widen the frame before agreeing. Ask yourself 3 quiet checks. What else happened? Who decided what, when exactly? Naming timeline edges expands memory. Expansion weakens the selective cue, and truth breathes again. The third invisible game is emotional tax, a charge placed on your calm. The rule is simple. Your peace becomes expensive unless you pay with compliance. You learn to buy silence by shrinking yourself, and the invoice arrives daily. Emotional tax works because humans avoid loss faster than we seek gain. Your brain treats sudden tension as possible social loss, then seeks quick payment. The quickest payment is compliance, so you pay with actions and call it kindness. Reverse the payment flow with tiny non-purchases. Refuse microtransactions of forced calm. Say less, wait longer, and let tension exist without rescue. Your nervous system adapts. Very soon the tax collector loses profit because you stopped funding the market. The fourth invisible game is credibility erosion through constant micro-doubt. This begins with small questions about your recall, tone, or hidden intentions. Each question is minor. Together, they place cracks across your inner mirror. Microdoubt uses frequency over intensity because frequent taps change structure quietly. You start checking yourself before you speak, then after you speak, then always. Constant checking looks like responsibility, but it is often rehearsed self-surveillance. Repair your mirror with evidence rituals, not with apologies or long explanations. Evidence rituals are short, repeatable, and neutral. They rebuild self-trust through data. For example, write the claim, write the action, write the timestamp, return later. When records exist, micro-doubt loses air, because questions meet calm verification. You no longer chase every challenge, you invite the review and drink water. The message becomes steady. Pressure does not equal truth, and truth tolerates checking. The fifth invisible game is scarcity bonding, a bond created by threatened withdrawal. You are taught that access is limited and must be earned repeatedly. Your nervous system then treats simple attention like rare oxygen during a climb. Scarcity bonding produces compulsive reassurance seeking, which looks like loyalty but is dependence. The more you seek reassurance, the weaker your baseline becomes over time. Eventually, you misread tension as proof of connection, and stillness feels unsafe. Counter scarcity by restoring abundance cues inside your day, even very small ones. Schedule neutral grounding breaks. Schedule contact with people who speak in steady patterns. The body learns new safety through repetition, not through heroic single decisions. The sixth invisible game is moral mirroring. Your own values turned against you. The manipulator studies your highest principles, then reframes requests as moral tests. You comply to protect your self-image, not because the request is fair. Moral mirroring feels clean, which is why it bypasses your doubt so quickly. You feel noble while moving the boundary, then you defend the new boundary. Later, you cannot explain the shift, so you accept it as hidden growth. Resist by separating values from tactics. The value is steady. Tactics are negotiable. You can protect kindness while refusing a tactic that harms your autonomy. Say inside your mind, same value, different method, then offer a precise alternative. The seventh invisible game is fog flooding. Information overload delivered during emotional spikes. The sequence is predictable. Raise intensity, flood details. Demand a rushed conclusion. Under overload, your brain trades accuracy for relief, and relief chooses surrender. Fog flooding often arrives with urgent tones, rapid claims, and selective consequences. The technique thrives on your biological limit. Working memory can hold very few items. If more items arrive than capacity, your decisions default to pressure, not truth. Build a fog protocol, reduce inputs, write 3 claims, and ask for order. This slows the flood into a stream, and streams can be tested calmly. Do not chase every point. Isolate the core claim, then verify evidence. Now watch how these 7 games cooperate like gears. Each one feeds another. Guilt priming prepares compliance. Responsibility inversion hardens blame. Emotional tax punishes resistance. Micro-doubt erodes confidence. Scarcity bonding restricts oxygen. Moral mirroring sanctifies requests. Fog finishes. When the machine runs, you begin apologizing for feelings that are not yours. You apologize for asking questions. You apologize for needing time. You apologize for boundaries. Each apology feels polite. Together they become a confession that rewrites your identity. The antidote is a different machine, built from slow clarity and stable boundaries. Clarity uses fewer words and stronger definitions. It names behaviors without folding. Boundaries are instructions for you, not threats for others. They guide your own action. Say inside your mind, I control access to my time and attention. Decide response windows in advance and keep them steady regardless of pressure applied. Predictability protects cognition because predictability reduces fear, and fear fuels manipulation loops. Learn the signal of borrowed guilt. It feels fast, personal, and foggy. Learn the signal of real responsibility. It feels specific, time-bound, and actionable. When a request is vague and urgent, you are likely being moved, not asked. Do pattern spotting every evening. Choose one moment that felt off today. Write the trigger, write your reaction, write the likely game from the 7. Then write an alternate response that protects your value and your boundary. Rehearse that alternate response aloud. Short sentences train the nervous system effectively. Practice stops panic during live pressure, because practiced lines arrive before fear grows. You are preparing your body to serve your mind, not the pressure. Notice energy drains. Chronic exhaustion is not normal. It is a message. Drain appears when you regulate another person more than you regulate yourself. Your sleep and focus begin to fracture, and you blame your weak discipline. Call the drain. What it is: covert labor for someone else's stability. Covert labor hides inside worry thoughts, tracking moods, and constant self-monitoring. You can choose to decline that labor, even if you still care. Care without control looks like clean boundaries. It says what you will do. It does not say what others must feel, and it does not chase peace. Peace created by chasing others becomes war inside you later. You will also see gaslight by kindness, a gentle mask on hard control. The message says you misread everything because the delivery seems warm and patient. Warm delivery does not equal clean intent. It only equals warm delivery. Check consistency over time, not tone within a moment. Consistency reveals pattern. Clean intent survives review and disagreement. Dirty intent needs speed and fog. When review is refused, you have your answer, even if words sound sweet. Watch for scorekeeping that you never agreed to. Invisible ledgers create quiet slavery. You may hear reminders of past favors during unrelated moments of pressure. This binds you with gratitude debt, a noble trap that siphons your freedom. Gratitude debt ends when you repay with thanks, not with permanent obedience. Say thank you, then decide new requests using your current principles only. Past kindness does not purchase your future judgment, only your respect and appreciation. Control attempts often hide inside questions that are not really questions. They steer you toward answers that confirm the manipulator's preferred story. If any answer you give seems wrong, the question was a directive. Respond by naming the premise before you answer. Is the assumption even true? Premise testing returns you to equal ground because it moves you upstream. Upstream is where influence flows from. Downstream is where regret collects quietly. Some control hides in timing rather than content. Watch the calendar pattern. Pressure arrives when you are tired, busy, or emotionally open after wins. Lower defenses equal higher compliance, so timing becomes the secret lever. Plan protective timing habits. Decide never to commit during high fatigue. Decide to sleep on decisions that change commitments or boundaries or values. Rest is not avoidance. Rest is the power grid for your judgment. Remember that silence is not guilt. Silence is bandwidth allocation and boundary protection. You do not owe instant feelings, instant explanations, or instant fixes. Speed is the weapon. Slowness is the shield. Pace decides power. If someone claims your slowness is disrespect, listen for urgency and fog. True respect includes patience for verification. False respect demands immediate surrender. You can still be kind while being slow. This is advanced discipline. When you feel trapped by a binary choice, search for the erased third. Manipulation loves false dilemmas because binaries rush the mind into panic. Naming a third option dissolves the trap, even if you choose neither. Hold one rule close. You are not responsible for secret expectations. You are responsible for clear agreements that you accepted with full information. Secret expectations are control tools. They only work when you adopt them. Every time you detect a game, resist the urge to retaliate immediately. Retaliation often feeds the machine and strengthens the opponent's narrative. Choose non-engagement or precise boundary language. Both deny attention and energy. Over time, your nervous system will trust you again. Watch for early signs. You will feel comfortable pausing before answering, even under visible pressure. Your thoughts will sound like you again. Simple, steady, and clean. The most dangerous trap appears last, self-gaslighting after repeated confusion and guilt. You start doubting your resistance, and you label your boundaries as selfish. This final trap completes the loop, because you now police yourself without prompting. Break it with compassionate audit. Talk to yourself like a trusted mentor. Ask for evidence gently. Ask what value you are trying to protect. Answer in writing, then read it tomorrow. You will hear your sanity. You now recognize the 7 games, yet recognition is only the first layer. The deeper layer is pattern combination, where 2 games hide inside one moment. Can you see the pair that silently runs when your confidence rises again? Do you ever wonder why your thoughts suddenly defend someone who drains you? What if the voice that argues against your freedom is not even yours? If you want to reclaim your inner courtroom, watch how the rules were rewritten. The next layer of the manual reveals how influence becomes self-sustaining. Once the 7 games enter your thinking, they begin to run in your own voice. You stop needing the manipulator because the script now lives inside you. The 8th invisible game is internal echo conditioning. Thought loops trained to police you. You hear a quiet inner critic repeating their preferred language and tone. The goal is not control of action, but control of self-talk that shapes action. Internal echo works through repetition, not logic. The brain trusts what it hears often. So the manipulator seeds phrases like "you always," or "you never," or "you owe." Soon you repeat them privately, reinforcing a belief that never belonged to you. The countermove is linguistic quarantine. Isolate phrases that do not sound like your core. Ask yourself who used that exact wording first, and when did it begin? If the origin is external, remove the phrase, build a new sentence with neutral terms. Neutral language weakens emotional hooks. Emotions lose leverage when wording becomes plain. Say "I sometimes forget" instead of "I always fail." Precision dissolves the curse. Precision is not cold. Precision is emotional armor disguised as clarity. The 9th invisible game is panic framing, a false emergency created to override judgment. Urgency floods your nervous system and makes long-term thinking feel dangerous. You choose fast safety instead of slow truth, and the trap closes with gratitude. Panic framing uses countdowns, sudden shifts, or theatrical disappointment. Your body reacts before your mind evaluates because survival mode silences analysis. You then mistake relief for correctness. The fastest answer feels like the right answer. Resist panic framing by preloading a slow rule. Nothing urgent is decided under pressure. Say out loud, "I decide after calm," even if the other person pretends collapse. The world rarely ends in 1 hour, but manipulation often needs you to believe it will. The 10th invisible game is identity hijack, where your traits become the leash. If you see yourself as kind, the request arrives shaped like kindness. If you see yourself as strong, the request arrives shaped like resilience. Identity hijack turns your best qualities into remote controls. You comply not to help them, but to protect the image you admire in yourself. Your pride becomes the reward, and the cage is gilded with self-respect. Dismantle this by separating identity from performance. You are kind even when you refuse. You are strong even when you rest. You are loyal even when you say no. Identity is a stable core, not a vending machine for approval. The 11th invisible game is selective validation. Approval given only when you bend. You receive praise at strategic times, shaping your brain to link worth with obedience. Over time, you chase the rush of being seen, even when the cost is dignity. Selective validation is not love. It is behavioral training using emotional rewards. The schedule is variable, so your mind keeps gambling, waiting for the next approval hit. This is the same pattern that keeps people addicted to uncertainty. Reverse the system by creating self-issued validation. Reward your own aligned actions. Notice when you honored your boundary. Say good job quietly, breathe deeply. Repetition builds internal approval pathways, making external validation less addictive. The 12th invisible game is blurred apology swapping, where you say sorry to stop tension. The manipulator asks no apology from you because they already know you will offer it. You apologize for tone, timing, misunderstanding, anything that ends the discomfort. Apology swapping rewires your brain to associate peace with self-blame. Soon your reflex is to confess, even when the mistake is not yours. You feel moral for apologizing, but morality was not the goal. Silence was. The antidote is apology calibration. Sorry only for your clear and specific error. If the error is vague, request clarification before you apologize. Clarity slows the cycle, and the cycle collapses without automatic confession. The 13th invisible game is contradiction looping, shifting positions to exhaust you. You argue one point, they move the goalpost. You adapt, they move again. Your brain cannot win, so it seeks surrender as the most efficient exit. Contradiction looping is not debate. It is endurance warfare on your cognition. Your exhaustion is the prize, because tired minds cling to whoever offers closure. The closure is agreement, not truth, and you mistake rest for resolution. Reject the loop by naming the shift. You said one thing earlier, now it changed. Say it calmly without defense, the mirror stops the dance. Loops need motion. Reflection halts motion, and silence returns your power. The 14th invisible game is emotional baiting, small provocations designed to trigger reaction. Once you react, the narrative flips, and you become the problem. They fish for your explosion, then frame your explosion as proof of your flaw. Baiting works because humans defend against unfairness faster than we reflect. The moment you defend, the topic resets and your reaction becomes the new issue. You are fighting the scoreboard, not the cause, and the scoreboard is rigged. Win by refusing the bait. Respond with cool naming, not heated defending. Say you seem upset. What is the core concern? Keep tone steady. Calm curiosity poisons bait because bait thrives on emotional ignition. The 15th invisible game is overdose kindness, intense sweetness that hides future control. You are showered with admiration, support, or help, but the pace is unnatural. Your nervous system bonds quickly because the rush feels like safety. Later the price appears and you already feel indebted. The contrast between kindness and demand makes you question your suspicion. You think maybe you are ungrateful and the hook sets deeper. Protect yourself by tracking balance over time, not intensity in moments. Real support has rhythm, not flood, and respect does not need repayment reminders. Too much too soon is not generosity, it is investment in future leverage. The 16th invisible game is isolation by subtle discouragement, not direct commands. You hear doubts about your other connections, framed as concern for your well-being. Slowly you withdraw from sources of clarity, leaving only one voice in your head. The mind seeks majority opinion, and when only one voice remains, it becomes truth. Loneliness is not the trap. Selective companionship is, because it feels chosen. You think you stayed because you wanted to, not because alternatives were dimmed. Reverse isolation with scheduled plural contact. Multiple minds prevent single narrative takeover. Even short neutral conversations refresh perspective and weaken internal fog. Your brain needs contrast to see truth. Same voice equals same illusion. The 17th invisible game is emotional debt rollover, where every solved issue births a new one. You You think you reached peace, but a fresh problem appears before the calm settles. You stay in fix mode endlessly, hoping the next fix will finally close the account. This pattern trains you to live in anticipation, not presence. You never rest long enough to measure the relationship, because there is always a next repair. Repair becomes identity, and identity becomes the leash. Your exit is deadline discipline. Decide how many cycles you will allow. After the limit, you stop fixing and start observing. The truth reveals itself fast. Patterns hate observers. They need workers, so your stillness exposes the game. You now see 10 more gears in the machine, and the picture sharpens. These games do not destroy your logic. They redirect it, turning intellect into self-sabotage. Once the system runs, you defend your own cage and call it fairness. But a question remains. The most dangerous move is still hidden. What if the manipulator never needs pressure again, because you apply it to yourself? How does the final transformation happen when the controller disappears and the control stays? Continue only if you are ready to face the last redesign of your mind. Do you know why your mind still obeys even after the pressure is gone? What if the manipulator no longer needs to control you because the system now lives inside you? If you want to break the final layer, you must see how your mind was redesigned. The next reveal is not about what they do to you, but what you start doing to yourself. Once the external influence becomes internal software, the system runs without supervision. You think you are acting freely, but the code behind your choices was quietly replaced. The 18th invisible game is self-surveillance installation. The watcher placed inside your own mind. You begin monitoring your tone, your reactions, your needs, before anyone else does. You call it self-improvement, but its architecture is fear-shaped into responsibility. The brain learns this from repeated external correction, until the correction becomes automated. You no longer wait for feedback. You pre-punish yourself to avoid potential conflict. Your freedom collapses inside silent rehearsals. You edit every emotion before it appears. Break the installation with conscious permission. Say, I am allowed to feel before I filter. Practice unedited thought in private writing. Raw expression reconnects emotion with safety. Only after emotion breathes can logic return without chains. The 19th invisible game is guilt recycling. Old regrets repurposed to control new behavior. You are reminded of past mistakes, not to heal them, but to justify future obedience. The message is simple. Since you failed once, you must overcorrect forever. Guilt recycling hardens identity. You stop seeing mistakes as events and start seeing them as proof. Proof that you are flawed, proof that you owe, proof that you cannot trust your own choices. This proof becomes the fuel for long-term submission. Cut the loop with timeline separation. The past is not your currency for the present. Ask, is this guilt about now or a replay of yesterday? Label it. When guilt is labeled as old, it loses authority over new decisions. The 20th invisible game is internal hostage logic, freedom held ransom by imagined consequences. You believe that saying no will break something fragile, even when nothing proves it. Your brain creates disaster scenes to justify compliance in advance. Hostage logic works best on empathetic minds because they imagine harm vividly. So your mind threatens you with loss, abandonment, or chaos unless you obey. You call it foresight, but it is just fear-wearing intelligence. Diffuse the hostage by evaluating cost and reality, not imagination. Write the feared outcome, then list actual evidence for its past occurrence. When evidence is low, the threat dissolves into air and choice returns. The 21st invisible game is reverse normalization. Extreme behavior slowly sold as ordinary. The benchmark shifts millimeter by millimeter until the unacceptable becomes routine. You adapt because humans normalize anything they repeat long enough. Reverse normalization shows up when you say, this is just how things are. That sentence is the funeral of self-respect, disguised as maturity. Acceptance becomes numbness, numbness becomes identity, and identity locks the door. Reclaim the original benchmark by comparing now with before, not with yesterday. Measure from the time when your peace was natural, not expensive. Contrast reveals deviation, and deviation exposes the lie of normal. The 22nd invisible game is self-miniaturization, shrinking your presence to avoid friction. You speak less, choose safer words, reduce emotional range, and call it calmness. You are not calm, you are edited. Miniaturization happens because your nervous system links visibility with danger, so you compress yourself hoping safety lives in smallness. But shrinking never satisfies control, it only invites more shrinking. Expand slowly with micro-expansions, say one sentence longer than usual. Add one honest opinion without apology, then breathe through the discomfort. Expansion trains the body to survive visibility, and visibility is power. The 23rd invisible game is compliance pride. Pride in how well you adapt to unfairness. You admire your tolerance, your maturity, your ability to endure. You start measuring strength by how silently you suffer. Compliance pride is the most elegant cage because it rewards you for staying inside. The more you endure, the more noble you feel, and nobility becomes sedative. Soon you defend your chains because they make you feel morally superior. Reverse pride by shifting the metric. Strength is not silent endurance. Strength is aligned living. Ask, is this endurance protecting my value or protecting someone else's comfort? If the answer is the second, honor yourself by choosing friction instead of decay. The 24th invisible game is identity fusion, where the conflict disappears by merging you with the controller. You say we instead of I. You feel their reactions inside your own body. Your nervous system cannot tell the difference between your peace and their approval. Fusion eliminates rebellion, because rebellion would feel like self-harm. You serve their needs as if they were organs inside your own chest. This is not loyalty. This is psychological annexation. The exit is diffusion through language. Start using I again, even in thoughts. Name your feelings separately from theirs, even if it feels rude. Individuality is not arrogance. It is oxygen for the mind. The 25th invisible game is narrative rewriting, where you explain your own pain as growth. You create elegant reasons for why the discomfort is good for you. You romanticize the struggle, giving meaning to what is actually damage. Rewriting is not healing. It is anesthesia that delays the break. The story keeps you loyal because you want the suffering to have purpose. But purpose does not require pain, only direction. Apply narrative audit. Ask who benefits from this meaning I created. If you remove the other person from the story, does the lesson still stand? Truth that depends on one person is not truth. It is conditioning. Now the picture sharpens. The system is almost complete. The manipulator does not need to control you anymore, because you now self-maintain the structure. You shrink, you monitor, you apologize, you justify, and you call it wisdom. But one final twist remains, the most advanced form of control. What happens when the manipulator does not want power over you anymore, because you give it automatically? What if the game continues even after the manipulator is gone? The last redesign is coming, where the enemy is no longer a person but a pattern inside you. Are you ready to see the part of your mind that thinks the cage is home? Do you know why the cage feels safer than the open door? What if freedom now feels dangerous? Not because it is, but because you were trained to fear it. If you want to break the final layer, you must question the voice that sounds like self-protection. The next reveal is not about the manipulator at all. It is about the upgraded version of you that now protects the system for them. The control no longer needs an outside source because the architecture of obedience has merged with your survival instincts. You are no longer being controlled. You are auto-correcting yourself to stay controlled. The 26th invisible game is safety substitution, where discomfort feels safer than uncertainty. Your nervous system has learned to prefer predictable pain over unpredictable freedom. The mind concludes, if I know the pattern, I can survive it, even if it costs me. Safety substitution is why you stay in draining dynamics and call it stability. The body confuses familiarity with safety, even when the familiar is corrosive. You stop chasing relief, you start chasing the known. Reverse it by practicing safe uncertainty in small doses. Choose one unknown step daily. Uncertainty with control is not danger, it is unused freedom. Your system will update slowly, but it will update because biology serves evidence. The 27th invisible game is inner prosecutor, the part of you that argues against your own needs. You hear thoughts like, do not be dramatic. It is not that bad. Be grateful. This voice wears discipline, but it serves suppression. The prosecutor was built through repeated denial of your emotional signals. You learned that your needs create problems, so you learned to silence them early. This is not maturity. It is internal abandonment. Deactivate the prosecutor through evidence of need legitimacy. Write one need per day without justification. Needs do not require permission, they require acknowledgement. Once acknowledged, they stop screaming, and negotiation becomes calm. The 28th invisible game is inherited. Blame reflex. Blame yourself before anyone else can. You instinctively take responsibility for the tension in any space. Your brain believes control of blame equals control of outcome. But blame reflex is a false shield. It protects no one. It only erases you. Guilt becomes your currency, and you overpay for peace that never lasts. You walk into every moment already apologizing in your mind. Repair this reflex with the question, what if it is not mine? Pause before assuming ownership. Let the silence test the truth. If no clear evidence appears, the blame is not yours to carry. The 29th invisible game is trauma loyalty, an unconscious bond to the system that shaped you. You defend the very structure that drained you because leaving feels like betrayal. Your mind honors the pain as if it were a mentor. Trauma loyalty appears as I understand why they are like this. Compassion is not the problem, fusion is. You can understand a storm without living inside it. Heal loyalty by shifting devotion to recovery, not to history. Gratitude for survival does not require staying in survival mode. You can honor the lesson and still walk away from the classroom. The 30th invisible game is false awakening, the belief that awareness alone equals freedom. You understand the manipulation. You can name every tactic, but nothing changes. The system smiles because knowing the trap is not the same as leaving it. False awakening traps thinkers because analysis feels like action. You study the bars, you map the lock, you measure the distance to the exit, but you do not move. Clarity without choice is just intellectual pain. Break the illusion with micro-rebellion, not with final escape plans. Rebellion is not dramatic, it is quiet. Refusal repeated consistently. Small exits build capacity for larger ones. The 31st invisible game is personality merge, where silence and compliance feel like core traits instead of chosen responses. You say, I am just calm, I am just understanding. I do not like conflict. But these might be survival traits, not true personality. Merge dissolves identity into coping, and coping pretends to be character. To question it feels like losing yourself, when in truth you are finding yourself. Your real traits are buried under what kept you tolerated, separate trait from tactic. Ask, did I choose this or did I adapt? Authenticity feels alive. Adaptation feels drained. The body knows the difference. Listen to your energy, it does not lie. The 32nd invisible game is recovery sabotage, the hidden resistance that appears when healing begins. The moment you get space, your mind pulls you back with doubt. You wonder, was it really that bad? Maybe I exaggerated. Maybe I am the problem. This is not confusion. It is withdrawal from control chemicals your brain got used to. Drama, guilt, and tension became neurological fuel, and peace feels empty at first. Emptiness scares the mind, so it returns to what felt full, even if it was toxic. Counter the sabotage with structured stillness. Schedule boredom without guilt. Let the brain detox from constant emotional stimulation. Peace feels unsettling before it feels safe. The 33rd invisible game is emotional amnesia, forgetting the pain when pressure disappears. You remember the good moments and delete the cost. You re-enter the cycle because the brain edits the past like a highlight reel. Prevent amnesia with written truth. Document the moments you minimized. Words on paper do not soften with time. Memory does. Your future clarity depends on present honesty. The 34th invisible game is ghost pressure, reacting to a threat that is no longer present. You panic at neutral tones, shrink at harmless questions, over-explain without being asked. Your body responds to a ghost that still lives inside the nervous system. Ghost pressure proves the system is internalized, no manipulator needed. The fear is now stored as muscle memory, breath pattern, and tone filter. You obey a voice that no longer speaks. Release ghost pressure with deep pattern interruption. Breath first, meaning second. Long exhale, slow neck release, shoulder drop. Then question the fear. The body must exit the past before the mind can. You now see the evolution of the machine. Phase 1. Control from outside. Phase 2, control from inside. Phase 3, control disguised as identity. The final question is no longer who manipulated you. The question is why the system still feels safer than freedom. Who are you when you stop shrinking, stop apologizing, stop predicting the storm? The last layer is not resistance, it is reclamation. But before reclamation begins, one truth must be faced. What if the part of you that fears freedom is also trying to protect you? Are you ready to confront the version of yourself that keeps you small, yet believes it is saving you? Do you know why the part of you that wants freedom still hesitates? What if the restraint is not weakness, but a survival instinct that never got updated? If you want real liberation, you must separate protection from imprisonment. The 35th invisible game is outdated defense, a safety script built for an old danger. Your mind still acts like the threat is present, even when the environment has changed. The body stays alert. The voice stays quiet. The choices stay small. Outdated. Defenses were born from real moments, so they feel justified. But a strategy that once saved you can later shrink you. The mind does not delete old code unless you rewrite it consciously. Rewrite begins with a single line, that danger is not here anymore. Say it when your chest tightens, when your words freeze, when you edit your needs. Name the present. The body listens. The 36th invisible game is comfort in invisibility, the belief that being unseen keeps you safe. You learned that attention invites correction, so you mastered quiet survival. You call it peace, but it is camouflage. Camouflage works in hostile ground, but not in open space. Freedom requires visibility, and visibility feels like exposure. Your progress depends on enduring the discomfort of being seen without punishment. Practice safe visibility, speak one honest sentence, hold one boundary, accept one compliment. Your system must relearn that expression does not equal danger. Each moment of safe visibility rewrites the nervous system from threat to permission. The 37th invisible game is partial awakening, freeing the mind but not the body. You understand the manipulation intellectually, yet your body still reacts as if trapped. Knowledge moved, but reflex stayed behind. Full awakening needs body evidence, not just mental awareness. You must act in alignment even if your pulse shakes. Action is what convinces the brain that the war is over. The 38th invisible game is identity fear, the terror of meeting the version of you without the cage. Who are you without guilt, without apology, without emotional debt? Freedom is not just release, it is reconstruction. This fear is not weakness. It is grief for the self you never got to explore. You are not afraid of emptiness, you are afraid of your own potential. Potential feels heavy because no one trained you to carry it. The exit is not confidence. The exit is permission to evolve privately. Become unfamiliar to yourself on purpose. Growth is not supposed to feel recognizable. You are not losing identity. You are removing what was never yours. Now the machine is almost fully visible. Not just the manipulator, not just the tactics, but the internal guard you turned into. The guard believes it is loyal, but it is loyal to a cage that has no walls anymore. And yet one question still remains. If the system is exposed, the tactics decoded, the fear understood, then what is the final lock? Why does the mind still wait for permission, even when no one is holding the key? Do you know why freedom still feels like a rule you are not allowed to break? What if no one is stopping you anymore, yet you still wait for an invisible signal to move? If you want to cross the final line, you must expose the last lock, the one you built yourself. The 39th invisible game is permission paralysis, the silent belief that liberation must be approved before taken. You wait for clarity, for validation, for the right moment, for a sign that never arrives. The habit of asking became so deep that even your freedom request is internalized as a question. Permission paralysis was formed when decisions were punished more than mistakes. Your nervous system learned that choice equals danger, so you delay choice to survive. Delay then becomes identity, and identity becomes the cage with no walls. The only exit is a choice made without proof, without guarantee, without applause. Freedom is not granted, it is claimed. The mind will not feel ready before the step. Readiness is created by the step. The 40th invisible game is untold self-contract, a silent agreement you made long ago. The contract said, if I stay small, I stay safe. If I stay quiet, I stay accepted. You never signed it on paper, but you signed it in your nervous system. The contract was logical back then. It kept you alive, connected, tolerated. But every contract has an expiry date, and this one expired the moment you outgrew fear. You are still obeying a rule that no longer protects you. End the contract with a single declaration. Spoken or written, I no longer owe safety to my silence. The nervous system resists at first, but truth repeated becomes law. Contracts break not through force, but through clear replacement. And now the final game, the deepest one, the one that makes all others possible. The 41st invisible game is self-mistrust architecture, convincing you that you cannot handle your own freedom. If you do not trust yourself, you will always choose the cage over the door. The system does not need chains when it controls your belief in your own judgment. Self-mistrust was not born because you were weak. It was installed because you were powerful. A confident mind resists control. A doubting mind obeys quietly. So doubt was not a symptom. It was the target. Heal mistrust not by affirmations, but by remembering proof. List decisions you made that protected you, helped you, guided you. Your history already contains evidence of your competence, but the machine taught you to ignore it. Self-trust is not loud, it is steady. It does not say I am always right. It says I can handle being wrong. Once that belief returns, control collapses instantly, because obedience needs fear to breathe. Now step back and see the full structure. First, they made you doubt yourself. Then they made you blame yourself. Then they made you police yourself. Then they made you justify your cage. Then they made you afraid of who you would be without it. The manipulator disappears. But the architecture stays. Until you choose to uninstall it, line by line, belief by belief, breath by breath. Freedom is not a moment, it is a muscle. It grows every time you speak one unedited truth, set one clean boundary, break one old reflex, choose one thought that belongs to you. You are not rebuilding confidence. You are returning to the version of you that existed before the training, the one who questioned naturally, felt freely, acted without apology, and trusted instinct without shame. The cage was taut, the freedom is original, and now one final question remains, the only one that matters. If nothing and no one is stopping you now, will you still wait? Or will you start? The manual is revealed. The gears are visible. The door is open. The next move is no longer psychological. It is personal, and only you can make it.